Okay, we have to start off with a content warning because in this video, I'm going to be talking about weight loss and calories. If you have an eating disorder or some other condition that might be worsened by that kind of talk, I highly recommend you give this video a skip. So it's January, and that means New Year's resolutions. And for many Americans, those resolutions are about getting physically healthy. At the top of the month, I posted a tweet defending the idea of New Year's resolutions, which I think came as a surprise to many people who follow me, considering that in general, I'm a cynical bitch who doesn't exactly exude optimism, especially around ideas of self-improvement. Despite that well-earned reputation, though, I actually do believe in self-improvement, and I think that it's a thing that everyone should genuinely concern themselves with. At least everyone who is in a comfortable place in their life to do so. Obviously, it's hard to care about improving your physical or mental or psychological health if you're struggling to pay rent or put food on the table. But for the rest of us, I don't begrudge people their New Year's resolutions. Yes, it's an arbitrary date, but I like arbitrary dates. I like starting a new spread in my little bullet journal. I know it's dorky, but it feels good to turn the page and start planning a new week every Monday. And yes, I started bullet journaling as a New Year's resolution several years ago because I've always been unorganized and I wanted to see if I could change myself to be more organized and to get more motivated. And it worked. Like, it demonstrably made my life better. As my patrons know, because I've evangelized bullet journals in past vlogs, it literally showed me that I can change, that I can be organized, that I have that capacity. Even after, 40 years on this planet, I can change something that I thought was fundamentally wrong with me. And while January 1st might seem arbitrary to some, it actually comes on the heels of some other arbitrary dates that don't necessarily promote what we think of as being good health. For me in particular, and probably for many other Americans, the weeks between Thanksgiving and New Year's Day is basically like a Dionysian free-for-all of sugar and alcohol and delicious fatty foods, and lounging around in my underpants watching brainless Christmas specials that I've seen literally every year for several decades. So it makes total sense that at the end of that hedonistic month, people might want to take a step back and kind of clean up their shit. And of course, this past year has been particularly rough for everyone and for me. I started 2020 in my little bullet journal. I planned to build muscle and improve my 5K time. But by March, my goal became don't die. Which I didn't. So good job on March resolutions for me. I managed to be pretty healthy for most of the year up until November. Like Thanksgiving, things got dark, for the whole country, the whole world, and for me. I knew we would see really bad COVID-19 spikes. I had family that was getting together for Thanksgiving, and they had a COVID scare because of that. I had to basically cut a family member out of my life after realizing that they were extremely toxic from all of this. And honestly, I just went to shit. I started drinking way too much and eating all of the things that gave me those warm, fuzzy feelings of Christmas past, like gingerbread cookies and eggnog and peppermint bark, cinnamon buns. I did not give a shit anymore about health. And I basically just tried anything I could to make myself feel happier at the expense of my physical health and ultimately at the expense of my long-term mental health. And because of all that, I gained 5 to 10 pounds, which sucks. Because yes, I look in the mirror and I feel bad about myself, but more importantly, that extra weight can literally cripple me. I think I've talked about this in past videos, but I have really serious back issues. And for pretty much my entire life. And over the years, I have talked to doctors and specialists about this and come to the realization that the heavier I am, especially once I pass like 150 pounds, the higher risk I have of my back going out, which at times has been some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, like somebody just repeatedly stabbing me in the back. And it requires months and months of very careful work in order to get to the point where I can just barely hobble around. And then more months and months until I can stand or walk or sit in a chair like a normal able-bodied person. It sucks. So on January 1st of this year, I resolved to lose that weight and to maybe, if I do that, then start building up the muscle that I had hoped to build up in 2020. I figure we have at least another 4 months of quarantine ahead of us, so by the time that's over, I can emerge and pretend I had my shit together the entire time. Unless someone has seen this video. Whoops. And I've done this sort of thing before. About 8 years ago, I realized that my weight had creeped up without me noticing. And so I did some research. I figured out the most scientifically rigorous way to lose weight, and then I did it. So now I'm doing it again. And what is that scientifically rigorous way? Simple. Counting calories. When I eat and drink more calories than I expend, my body stores that excess as fat. To lose that, I simply need to eat and drink fewer calories than I expend. This is simple, but it is not easy. Because it requires that I first do some calculations to determine how many calories I should eat each day, and then pay attention to every single thing I put in my body. And of course, to not stuff my face the way I was when I put on the weight. To lose weight at a safe rate, which doctors suggest is 1 to 2 pounds per week, I need to eat about 1,200 calories per day. And that's what I'm doing now. That's what I did before, so that's what I'm doing now. And as you can see on this chart, I started January at 154 pounds. As of this recording, it's been about 2.5 weeks, and I have lost 4 pounds. So about 1 to 2 pounds per week, exactly as promised. So it worked before, it's working now. I feel good and healthy, and my back has stopped aching and feeling like it's ready to snap with one wrong move. Imagine my surprise then when a normally science-savvy friend tweeted this article from BuzzFeed. Who taught women that they should only eat 1,200 calories a day? Women especially need more than 1,200 calories just to breathe and exist, let alone exercise and function throughout the day like a normal human being. Well, here I am, a woman eating about 1,200 calories per day for the past several weeks, and I'm breathing and exercising and existing and functioning throughout the day. Am I not a normal human being? Let me say up front that the BuzzFeed article is, to put it nicely, light on the science. The author, Sachi Kall, bases most of the piece on expertise from a nutritionist on TikTok, who opens the article with, 1,200 calories is actually only enough daily nutrition if you are an 80-ish pound dog or a toddler. So let's nip that right in the bud. That is not true. Your basal metabolic rate, let's start there, your BMR, is approximately how many calories you should be expected to burn by simply existing. And it encompasses most of the calories that you burn every day. So like if you were just laying in bed like a vegetable, that's how many calories your body's expending just keeping things running. You can find out more or less what your basal metabolic rate is using calculators that you can find online, where you punch in your sex, your age, your height, and your weight. And this isn't going to be an exact number because everyone is a tiny bit different in terms of metabolism and other things, but it's close enough for anyone without a serious metabolic disorder, which is rare. And if you think you have one, then you can pretty much only find that out by going to see a doctor. A lot of people think they have low metabolism, but It's actually normal. But again, that BMR number is only if you're flopped in bed not doing anything all day. So instead, to get a more accurate number, we look at the TDEE, or total daily energy expenditure. That number takes into account whether you're sedentary, like you sit at a desk all day long, or if you move around a lot during the day, or if you actively exercise for an hour each day. So again, your TDEE isn't going to be an exact number. Everybody moves around at different rates. But for most people, so long as you kind of accurately figure out how sedentary you are, it's close enough for our purposes. Our purpose being figuring out how many calories you should eat in order to lose weight at a nice, slow, healthy rate. In my case, my TDEE as a 40-year-old, 5'6" woman who does moderate amounts of exercise is about 2,000 calories per day. So if I eat 2,000 calories a day and keep up this amount of exercise, I will remain at this weight. If I eat 1,200 calories per day, that's a deficit of about 800 calories per day. There are about 3,500 calories in a pound of fat. So at 800 calories per day deficit, it would take me about 4 days to lose 1 pound. Therefore, 1 to 2 pounds per week. And that's where the 1,200 calorie diet comes from. I'm a pretty average sized woman. So 1,200 calories gives you, if you are similar to my build and my height, it would give you 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss per week. So really, it just comes down to math. And it's math that you can see happening in real time. Is all of this actually much more complicated than what I've described? Yes, absolutely. Your body will get more calories out of ultra-processed food, for instance, fewer calories from raw food. Your metabolism won't be exactly the same as the average population, and it's going to vary over the course of your life. It might change on your menstrual cycle, for instance. Or sometimes you're going to eat a bunch of salty food and then retain a bunch of heavy water. Also, scientists think that maybe the 3,500 calories per pound number isn't always accurate. So all of that does make it more complicated, but does any of it change the basic idea for those of you who just want to lose a couple of pounds? No, it really doesn't. If you log absolutely everything you put in your body, you don't give yourself cheat days, you don't have a serious metabolic disorder, and you do the math correctly, then if you eat 500 fewer calories per day, you're going to lose about a pound per week. It's science. The BuzzFeed article spends a lot of time discussing, with no links to any scientific data, how brutal it is to live on 1,200 calories per day. Let's go back to that opening claim that 1,200 calories is only suitable for an 80-ish pound dog or a toddler. In fact, I can tell you that it is suitable for me, a 5'6" woman with a normal to overweight BMI while I'm losing weight. And it would be suitable for me to eat every single day if I were 6 inches shorter and at a healthy weight. Just because it's not what I would eat right now if I were trying to maintain my current weight, and it's not what I'll eat once I'm at my goal weight, it doesn't mean that it's not appropriate for someone with a much smaller TDEE than me. And that's the nice thing about calories in, calories out. It's not a diet that says that each person must eat these specific foods and nothing else for the rest of their lives. It's simply an understanding of physics and math. If you want your body to be larger, you consume more calories than you burn off. If you want your body to be smaller, you do the opposite. You consume fewer calories. If you want to maintain, you eat about the same number of calories as you burn in a day. The rest is all up to you. You can fill those calories in any way you want. You can eat nothing but cookies if you want. And I assume that's what Call did when she says her 1,200 calorie diet led to her doctor diagnosing her as malnourished. But of course, if you want to maximize your health, or even just make the whole thing easier, then you do change what you eat. For instance, I eat more protein because it keeps me full for longer. I eat more vegetables because they fill me up more than a bag of chips would. I drink more water because same. Call does this weird well poisoning, writing about a woman from the early 20th century who ate 1,000 calories a day in the form of this. For breakfast, she recommends drinking coffee, tea, or a glass of skim milk. For lunch, you can eat celery, olives, cornbread, and milk, or lettuce with mayonnaise, pickles, and melted cream cheese. And for dinner, which should be 650 calories, you could eat broiled halibut with lettuce and a whole wheat roll, or, yikes, stewed prunes and syrup with 10 to 12 peanuts, shredded whole wheat biscuits, and skim milk. And she calls back to this at the end of the article, writing, but hey, do you really want to follow a diet that originally recommended you eat a shit ton of prunes and skim milk for dinner? Life is short. Don't waste it on dried fruit alone. What the fuck? It's not the dried prunes and skim milk diet. Like, here's what I ate all day yesterday. For breakfast, I had black coffee and an egg and cheese sandwich with kimchi and hot sauce. It was delicious. For lunch, I had a cup of miso soup, delicious, and a couple of clementines. For dinner, I had spinach lasagna, and then I watched a movie and I had a gigantic bowl of popcorn. Total calories, 1,215. And no, I didn't feel faint all the time. I didn't get ravenous at any point. I didn't binge like Call suggests I should. I got a bit peckish around 5 p.m. and I distracted myself by reading until dinner. It wasn't the end of the world. And not to downplay it too much, like being hungry sometimes sucks. And some people absolutely hate it and cannot deal with it. And that's fine. I can deal with it enough that, you know, it's more important for me to be slightly uncomfortable sometimes to get down to a weight where I won't be crippled. So yeah, counting calories is definitely not for everyone. As Call correctly mentions in her article, some people might get obsessive about it and it could feed into an eating disorder. Also, not everyone wants to lose or gain weight, and that's okay. No one should be bullied for their weight, and it's up to each individual person to decide what is right for them. But for the vast majority of people who already want to lose weight safely, calories in, calories out is the way to go. In fact, if you've ever been on a diet that worked, like the Atkins diet or the tomato soup diet or whatever, it worked because you were eating fewer calories than you were burning. It's calories in, calories out is the machinery behind whatever skin the diet industry puts on top of it. And that's why it's not really a diet. When I reach my goal weight, just like last time, I'm going to keep checking in, watching what I eat, logging it if I have trouble keeping things in check. Call claims that if people restrict calories too much, then they'll end up binging and undoing their work. That's true for many people. UK researchers found that people were more likely to lose weight with a caloric deficit of only 600 calories per day instead of the 800 calories that most women would experience on 1,200 calories per day, and a much larger deficit for most men. Again, that's why calories in, calories out can work. You don't have to go down to 1,200 calories. Hell, I think a lot of people who want to lose or gain weight would benefit by first just logging what they currently eat without changing anything. Because you might be surprised to see where most of your calories are coming from and where you can most easily cut back or increase your calories to make a lifestyle that works for you. And yeah, there's going to be setbacks, but that's okay. Like, I didn't fail because I had 2 shitty months where I ate and drank too much. I succeeded by enjoying many years at a weight that I liked and that lessened the stress on my back and made it possible for me to enjoy the physical activities I like doing. In fact, research like the Calorie Project out of Duke University shows that people who learn to count calories and get to a healthy weight by reducing their caloric intake tend to keep at it and maintain that weight years later. Sure, some people give up or regain the weight and never try again, but that also happens with any other habit. We don't tell smokers not to give up smoking because most people eventually have a smoke again. If you're working on building new habits, it's worthwhile to be kind to yourself and understand that you're not going to be perfect. You can always try again. Anyway, don't take my word for it over calls that it's possible to be healthy and happy eating 1,200 calories a day if you're a person with lower TDEE. The National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute recommends that number for women who are looking to lose weight, suggesting a deficit of 500 to 750 calories per day for safely losing 1 to 1.5 pounds per week without going lower than 800 calories eaten per day. The National Institutes of Health conducted a meta-analysis of 34 randomized controlled studies that found low-calorie diets can lower total body weight by an average of about 8% during a period of 3 to 12 months. Weight loss and weight loss maintenance interventions lasting 3 to 4.5 years, at least in 4 studies, resulted in an average weight loss of 4%. Animal models show evidence that very low-calorie diets, far from being dangerous when proper nutrition is considered, actually can extend lifespans. Researchers fed rhesus monkeys diets with 30% fewer calories than a control group for 20 years and found those monkeys enjoyed reduced incidences of cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. Animal studies don't directly correlate to humans, but they do often give us a hint of what we might expect to see in humans if we have the ethical review board's permission and a lot more time on our hands. That said, research on humans who restrict calories without getting extreme about it is similarly really promising. The Calorie Project found that the group who reduced their calories by an average of 12% for 2 years had reduced risk factors, lower blood pressure and lower cholesterol for age-related diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. They also showed decreases in some inflammatory factors and thyroid hormones. There is some evidence that lower levels of these measures are associated with longer lifespan and diminished risk for age-related diseases. Moreover, in the calorie-restricted individuals, no adverse effects, and some favorable ones, were found on quality of life, mood, sexual function, and sleep. Again, I just want to make it crystal clear that no one should be forced or cajoled or pressured into changing their body size. Although I can certainly understand family and friends who might try to help someone who a doctor has established is dangerously underweight or dangerously overweight. It's a shame that there's so much stigma surrounding weight because it really is a fun and interesting topic. I feel like I'm back in 6th grade working on a science fair project when I can track my calories and see my weight trending down at exactly the rate I hypothesized doing this simple math. And I think that speaking about it openly and scientifically allows us to at least begin to separate morality and emotion from the subject and help people who want to change their bodies. Okay, so here's the final wrap up. I'm sorry this is a really long video, but here are the major points. Number 1, it's nobody's business what you do with your body. Number 2, research shows that if you want to gain or lose weight, your best and safest bet is calories in, calories out. Number 3, be kind to yourself because a slip up or a change in focus isn't a failure. Number 4, this is something I didn't mention before, but I wanted to sneak it in there because it's been very helpful for me. Exercise self-control once at the grocery store, because if the Cool Ranch Doritos make it from the grocery store into my house, then I have to exercise self-control 24/7, and there's no way that's happening. No one has that kind of self-control. Those chips are goners. So I leave them at the grocery store. Sometimes. And finally, don't get all of your scientific information from nutritionists on TikTok or from randos on YouTube. Remember, I always link to a transcript down in the doobly-doo. That transcript has links to every study I cite. Thanks again, as always, to my patrons at patreon.com/Rebecca for making it possible for me to do all of this research and then give those resources to you.